Okay, so post-Secret Ultimate Wars, Marvel's going to release a set of books that is, a couple of books that have just female teams. And people are like, oh, that's so groundbreaking. No. Birds of Prey. You had other groups that have been, I think it was Fearless Defenders. Actually, Darkseid's Furies, all-female group. But it does seem weird that in order to really make a big impact, because more women are reading comics, ironically, normally when they do these sort of transitions, there's a small blip in overall sales, but it's not really coming from... It ends up being more of, Thor's a woman. Bump in sales because they've transformed the character. And then it kind of goes back down to a regular level again. But the fact they're going to, I think it's... is it A-Force? They've got another Woodsman, it's just all women. And I'm like, okay. Will they fight just the female characters? Will it be just the female characters and female villains? I was like, it's good for them to get a lot of screen time. However, wouldn't it make more sense to integrate the characters with your already predominant groups instead of making a secondary group? I mean, so you're like the Fantastic Four. It's been at least 25% female. So this is up to 50%. Okay. She didn't have a huge role, especially in the earlier comics. But, Avengers, you had a female character. Justice Society, Justice League. In a lot of ways, very early on in comics, because they talk about, way back in the day, you could get away with all the misogynistic stuff. You had predominantly guys writing stories about predominantly guys that, for the vast majority of the time, you could have taken any character and swapped them around and it wouldn't have made a difference in the story. Which was at least some female characters that were normally physically abused by male characters. It was more socially acceptable at the time. But interesting to see if they're going to do, large groups that are just women again. Okay. He'd done it before. Now, it's weird that's considered groundbreaking. But if you're to do a book and it's just male characters, no female characters, it's sexist. If you're to be like, we're going to take all the black people, we're going to put them into a book. You'll be like, it's kind of racist. But all the women in a book, and it's an amazing thing they're doing. So I hope it does well. Comics overall have been taking a beating when it comes to the actual book format itself. The movies and mainstream appeal is actually really interesting. However, it's not really translating to upticks in sales of the actual physical comics. You are seeing much more in the way of toys and video games. Everything else that's tangential to the actual book is doing well. The book itself isn't really jumping that much at all. And then DC. The New 52 experiment is finally going to die. They're going to have, I think it's 49 books now. Your core 25, then additional, I think 24 added. A few of them are going to be just a small independent series. With their new idea of we're going to be able to write all these sorts of stories that are going to appeal to a much larger audience. Now, when you do a reboot, which New 52 was a reboot, and introduced a bunch of new books, most of which died pretty quickly. If you're starting kind of from scratch, how could you not then, not even 4 years ago, find a way to integrate all the different stories you wanted to? It almost sounds like every time I read more and more about what DC's trying to do is they're trying to go back to pre-crisis times, where if you were an older fan, you'd be like, my Superman did this. Guess what? Your Superman's got a book. You're a younger fan. I don't like the older Superman. It's okay. You've got a younger Superman. Back in the time of pre-crisis era, you had your Golden Age heroes. So you had a weaker, older Superman. But you know what? His fan base was an older fan base. If you liked Golden Age Green Lantern, you have to see him go from being a superhero, learning the ropes, to becoming the elder statesman of superheroes, to becoming a mentor to other superheroes, to becoming a father. Now all of a sudden the journey you're taking as the reader, from being someone who's young and impressionable, relatively seasoned, trying to help the next generation, and being a father and raising kids, you get to cover that whole aspect with a character. If you're a Batman fan, you're like, you know what? I think that over the 10 years I've read Batman, I think he should probably slow down. Yeah, he has. Maybe he'll get married. Yeah, he has. Maybe he's got a kid. He does. Maybe that kid ends up being a superhero. Hey, she is. Huh? You mean characters can get old and they actually can progress? Yeah. Wow. As the reader gets older, the character ages with them. I know this is a huge thing in the world of comics. It's about making money. It doesn't matter if it's my money, the money of a 35-year-old at the time of this video. It doesn't have to be my money of some of my buddies, same age. It's the money of a 25-year-old. It's the money of a 10-year-old. It doesn't matter. It's about the money. Every time you see these reboots, I see the exact same comments. Great, now I can jump off. When New 52 happened, I actually dropped about half the books that I was reading. Once Green Lantern 20s hit and they went to a new writers, read some of it, some eyes, midnight, dropped it. So every time they do this whole, we're going to do this to bring in new readers. Well, the moment you do like a hard break, what you're actually doing is you're allowing people who are kind of on the fence to jump off. And people who are like, I want to pick up comics as a hobby. It's not that many of them anymore. There's a lot more other things they can do. Do you want to actually go out and go to a physical store and buy a pretty expensive book, or do you want to instead just download a digital copy? Comic books, for the amount of material you get, are very expensive. A physical book, in most companies, is $3 to $4 for approximately 22 to 26 pages. Unless you're reading indies sometimes go a little bit farther. But then you're looking at a little bit more money. When you can go to the store and you can buy an actual book for about $20, and that book is probably going to be a couple hundred pages. So you can get 5 comics. Just like this. Here's a trade, $18. And let's see, this is going to cover 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 28, and 29. So this is $18 for 11 comics. 11 comics will say 22 pages. That now makes this, 242 pages for $18. Well, in that case, it's not that bad of a deal. However, these books individually, we're looking at between $30 and $40. So why buy the individual comics? I need to buy a trade instead. Of course, DC does a horrible job when it comes to trades. Or would you rather instead read a book that'll take you a lot longer to get through? That, when it becomes a movie, will be much more faithful adaptation than what we have there. So, I'm actually glad that for the most part, I quit reading Marvel. Unless Thanos is involved, at which point then I try to see if it makes sense with what Thanos has done in the past. Doing an all-female team, hey, go ahead. I'm well aware of the fact that in a couple years, it'll go back to whatever it was before. Unless it makes money. Comics is about making money. Marvel wants to make money. Disney wants to use Marvel to make money. Period. They don't care where the money's coming from. They just want to make money. Good PR is great. Good PR that leads to money is better. DC, the New 52 initially started out pretty well. They had some unique concepts to it. They butchered certain characters horrendously. Starfire. Starfire was a fantastic character in the Teen Titans cartoon. They then transform her into essentially a cheesecake. It was like, I learn information from people from physical contact. I really don't wear clothes. Personality? I don't have one. The Wolfsides have dropped the ball repeatedly. I do think that Marvel tries to do a lot more of a PC cutting edge hipster approach. A while back, I was flipping through one of the comics, and the person was constantly tweeting, and I can understand, if you want to tell people, oh, we're fighting so and so like Fifth and Main, don't be in the area, which just makes people show up to take selfies of Hulk fighting Juggernaut, but every single panel had like dozens of tweets, and occasionally like Instagram photos. If you're trying to save lives, it's like burning building, Fifth and Main, LOL. No. It's like that was when I was like, yeah, this book will get none of my money. It's not geared towards me. So making it more geared towards a younger audience, you kind of pigeonhole people who are going to read it. Would it be better if people went back to more of like the pre-crisis era, where you actually had, oh, you're an older fan? Yeah. Here are some books that are more geared towards older fans. Oh, do you want your Peter Parker to forever be a student and not have a job and not get married and not have a kid, even though people appear to absolutely love Mayday Parker and seem to enjoy the fact that he was married and was successful? Yeah, we don't want that anymore. Instead of going, well, guess what? There's 9 Spider-Man books? You can have one dedicated towards older Peter Parker. Other ones dedicated to younger Peter Parker. You don't need to constantly be so tied down by continuity that if every single book could be a crossover. And if you go back to how it was in like the 60s and 70s, in the 80s, where it was called Man of Steel. Man of Steel's continuity was based off of Man of Steel. And I think Man of Steel ended up coming out after Crisis on Infinite Earth. So it would have been either Adventure Comics or Action Comics. It would have been another comic that had its own internal continuity. Instead of, well, now this has continuity with this book and this book and this book, so we'll do lots of tie-ins. No, it's usually be like, this book deals with this book, this editor has to deal with the continuity of one book. Instead of, well, Superman is in like 9 books right now. Yeah. It's the same guy in all of them. Yeah. How do they all intertwine together instead of being like, we have 9 Superman books. 2 have their own independent continuity. Doesn't matter what's going on with the rest of the books. These books are fine. This book is going to deal with, Superman was killed by Doomsday. So Superman in this continuity is dead. Superman in this continuity is learning his powers. This Superman is in the future with the Legion of Superheroes. The rest of these books are all intertwined and all going forward at the same time. Which it sounds like DC's going to try to do again. So, for the couple of fans who think, you know what, I can start reading a new character now, and all that came before him, doesn't matter. For the older fan who's like, so I jump off now, because all that's happened before, doesn't matter. It almost seems like the main companies are there to try to sell toys, DVDs, or Blu-ray, video games, and their mainstream movies and TV shows.